and welcome to the first grade curriculum preview for elementary science. Today we're going to briefly be talking about Unit 3, Earth and its Resources for the third 6 weeks. As always, we always want to have our key planning documents available when we get ready to start planning for instruction. And today we're going to refer to the pacing guide, the unit overview, and then talk a little bit about the vocabulary on the standard. Standard clarifies. One of the biggest challenges that we have for the third 6 weeks is always trying to plan instruction around our two big breaks that come up for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I wanted to take a look for just a moment at the district calendar, which you can see on the screen. And the 6 weeks starts on November 14th. We have 5 days, and we have our Thanksgiving break. Then we come back, and then we've got 13 full days starting on November 28th. 13 full days, and then our Christmas break. We come back after Christmas, and then we have 8 days. So if you kind of think about the 6 weeks being broken up into these 3 chunks, a smaller chunk, a larger chunk, and then a smaller chunk at the end, that might be a way to help you kind of efficiently plan for the 6 weeks. So keeping that chunking in mind, if we look over here to the side, there's those 3 chunks of time I was just talking about. And then here's the pacing guide that we have for this particular unit. And you can see it pretty well falls into place with those 3 different sections of the calendar. I just want to point out that we start off the 6 weeks with actually a process skill as our leading standard, and this is really going to set the stage for the rest of the unit. So 1.1c is what I'm looking at on that top row, and this is really where we're going to start focusing on natural resources, which we study later on in this 6 weeks, but looking at how we can conserve it, reuse it, and then recycle it. The next part of the 6 weeks of the unit is where we're going to be looking at soil, and we're going to compare, observe, describe, and sort it, and then talk about how rocks and soil make useful products. And then we wrap up the 6 weeks by focusing in on natural sources of water and starting to identify some of those. So when you're planning out for this particular unit, again, those challenges of the calendar, you might find this document to be helpful, so I just wanted to mention that this is a document that is available to you, or just kind of seeing the format might help you. This is attached in Canvas underneath this video. It's also available on the district website, but it's our Planning for Learning protocol, and this is for planning a unit. And so whenever I sit down and plan with teachers or plan out curriculum, I refer to this, and it really helps me keep things organized, and then you can see it's got each of the weeks there so that you can start to make some notes. So again, if this is something that is interesting to you and maybe helpful, it's attached in Canvas underneath this video. Okay, so let's take a look at what is going to be new for your first graders and what they did back in kindergarten. If you've been teaching first grade for a while, you know that kindergarten and first grade are very similar this 6 weeks, so I want to just really highlight what they've done in kindergarten and where you're taking your kiddos next. So on the right side of the screen, you'll see the 3 content standards, and we've got 1.7a, 1.7b, and my apologies, it says K.7, K.7c, and that should be 1 right there. But the standard is correct. This is your standard right here. And if you'll notice, I've actually chunked each one of those standards into 3 parts. So let's take a look at 1.7a. Your students are going to be responsible for doing 4 verbs. They're going to learn to observe, compare, describe, and sort. So those will be some skills that you'll want to take some time and really make sure that they understand how to do those things and how to show their skill set in that. So the thing that they're going to observe, compare, describe, and sort are components of soil. And then specifically, we're going to look at size, texture, and color of that. If you take a look at 1.7b, they're going to do 2 verbs, identify and describe. They're going to look at a variety of natural sources of water, lakes, streams, and oceans. You can also put in rivers and ponds, that's fine as well, but this is going to be where kiddos are going to start to identify those. And then 1.7c, students are going to gather evidence, so that's a new skill for them, of how rock, soil, and water make useful products. So let's contrast this to what they learned last year in kindergarten. So last year, instead of soil, they looked at rocks. Last year, instead of identifying and describing the natural sources of water, they only looked at physical properties like color and clarity. And then last year, they were looking at the way rock, soil, and water were useful. You will be focusing on the products. To overlay all of the content standards for first grade, of course, we're just laying on top those process skills. So conserving, recycling, and reusing applies for all of those content standards. Your students are also going to be starting to develop that skill of asking questions and communicating. Remember, we had gather evidence as one of our verbs. So they need to start to communicate and provide reasons why that's evidence for a product and why it's useful. Okay, I also want to talk to you a little bit about some time savers that you might find helpful in the unit overview. You'll see a screenshot of the unit overview for this unit 3, and it's 4 pages long. And there's a couple of updates that I just wanted to point out to you that I think will help save you some time. So I'm going to pull over the PDF version of the unit overview, and we always start off just with a screenshot of the standards for the whole 6 weeks. There's some connections for the different content areas in the guiding questions. And then on the second page, these are approaches to classroom use, so just some notes about some different things that can help you in your planning as you start to put pencil to paper and plan those out. But what I really wanted to point out to you is actually in the resources right here on the last 2 pages. If you remember, we actually have 5 days, and we start off the unit with 1.1c, and that's focusing on natural resources and how to conserve them. And you might be thinking, well, how am I going to teach a process skill for 5 days? So this section talks about resources for all the process skills, and there are specific lessons for that process skill as well as the rest of them in the teacher toolbox. And I've also got a lesson here in AIMS that fits well, and there's a wonderful waste in place lesson that's hung in Eduphoria that will address this as well. So I just wanted to point out a couple of those updates. I tried to include more visuals so you can really see some of the tools that you have available. And remember, I've always got extensive notes and recommendations for what lessons I think are best fits for your first graders. And I just want to mention for 1.7b, this is where students are going to start looking at sources of water. I have a real specific recommendation within this section right here that I just wanted to point out. I went through STEM scopes and looked at all of the pieces I thought were particularly good fits. And if you'll notice here, there's a note under Explore, and that's a really kind of a comprehensive overall investigation that I think would actually be a better fit after one of the AIMS lessons. So that's a pretty detailed level of information that I just wanted to let you know that I think can save you some time. So my recommendation is, and I've got it down here too, this Sticking to Water. It's a great activity where kids use Texas, a map of Texas to identify lakes, rivers in the Gulf of Mexico, which is a really nice connection for social studies. And then I think after they do this activity, I think going back to the Explore is really going to make that a really wonderful and strong experience for the kids. So again, if you haven't looked at those notes there, they are designed to help save you some time. So make sure that you take a look at those, and I think you'll find them useful. Okay, just wrapping up, I just want to remind you about vocabulary. I know several of you went to the Dr. Jackson interactive word wall session, and I just wanted to let you know if you went or if you didn't, there's a resource for you in the Just in Time section back in Canvas. So in addition to this curriculum preview, if you go back into Canvas, just to the right of this video, you'll see a 15-minute video on interactive word walls. And what I've done is I've kind of synthesized what Dr. Jackson put together for her presentation and created a kind of a get started guide. So if you were able to attend her session, I think you'll find that to be a nice review, and all the resources are right there in one spot. And if you were not able to attend, that will give you enough information just even to get started. So I hope that you'll find that to be helpful if you'd like to try an interactive word wall. And just remember that the vocabulary for the standards will be found on the clarifier. and that we have assessment bank in STEM scopes if you're looking to make some summative assessments or formative assessments. Okay, well, just two final thoughts. I want to give a big thank you to all the teachers that have been participating on the discussion boards, as well as back on October 11th, when we did our SOAR in Science. That was a menu choice, and I had a Padlet feedback. Great feedback on there. I really appreciate you doing that. And if you weren't a part of that, you can always go back into Canvas and take a look. Just go back into the October 11th Science, and you'll see the Padlet link there. Also, thank you if you have been participating in the discussion boards in Canvas. Every 6 weeks, we'll have our curriculum preview, and we'll have some sort of discussion or question or something for you to interact with other teachers or to ask me questions. So thank you for being a part of that. I think you're going to find as a teacher that's going to be a really powerful tool for us. And then finally, just to remind you that there's a face-to-face opportunity if that's something that you would like is some time with your coordinator or to meet together with colleagues, and that's called C3. We offer those every 6 weeks, and you can find information about that in workshop, and we'll also be sending out an email blast. So those happen every 6 weeks. We've got those scheduled, and that's just an optional time and some extra support. As always, please let me know how I can help support your instruction. Thanks so much, and have a great 6 weeks.